I'm Julia Edgley, homeopath, and I'm so happy to be back here with you with Beauty Therapy by Absolution. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the first part of facial analysis, and that is looking at our forehead and what this could mean for us to address imbalances in our health and well-being and how to incorporate this in our daily lives. Before this, I want to explain to you how you can use facial analysis yourself. Now, facial analysis is never supposed to replace a diagnosis. But what it can do, if you have a certain pathology, what it can do is give you insight into imbalances in the body that might help with this pathology. Our body works as a whole. In holistic therapies, we look at every aspect of our health. If you're manifesting with headaches, you might need to address your intestines. If you're manifesting with hormonal issues, you might have to look at your lungs. All of this is going to be helped with facial analysis. So the forehead here is this area that we're going to be looking at today. Now the symptoms I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to be talking about is lines on the forehead, if you particularly have lines rather than anywhere else in your body, acne of the forehead, skin texture of the forehead, and irritations of the forehead and what this means. Now the facial analysis I use is actually a mixture of my personal clinical experience with Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, and actually as well facial reflexology to reflect all of this in the patient. So when I see issues with the forehead for a patient, the first thing I think about is their intestines and how they are digesting their food. This is really important. So any symptoms, whether it be lines, acne, skin texture, irritation, the first thing you think about is the digestive system and what does this mean. So I'm going to start off talking about lines on the forehead. So you can have different types of lines. You can have horizontal lines, you can see from me, or you can have a vertical line in the middle. Now physically, what I want to look at when I have somebody who has vertical lines, horizontal lines is a certain aspect of dehydration of the intestines. And what does this mean is we're consuming a lot of refined carbohydrates and meat. And what we need to do is we need to rehydrate the intestines to flush out the intestines by eating our water. Now I know that sounds strange. And what do I mean by eating our water? Well, when we say to eat for hydration, you're looking at fresh fruit and vegetables. And you need to do this to flush out your intestines. Your intestines always need to be cleaned out, and it kind of needs to a helping hand, because our intestines are cleaning out our whole body, so we need help to clean out that. So what you're looking for when you're looking for lines in the forehead, you're looking at a type of systemic dehydration. Now this doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, that you just necessarily increase the amount of water, but you need water into the intestines and flushing out the intestines. So what can you do? The first thing I would say is see if you are eating enough fresh fruit and vegetables throughout the day. Even if they're steamed vegetables, roasted vegetables, make sure that you are getting enough as a major part of your diet. The other aspect I would see is that you need to address the type of fibre that you're eating. There's two types of fibre, resistant starch and soluble fibre. These act to attract water into the intestines in order to flush out our toxins. So that is what I'd be looking for lines on the forehead. Emotionally as well, because we can look at these symptoms for an emotional aspect, is that lines can indicate someone who has a tendency to overthink and over-worry, and usually somebody who is always thinking about the future. So if you have lines on your forehead, you need to be able to address this tendency to anxiety or a tendency to overthink, and find techniques such as meditation, chanting, yoga in order to bring you back into the present. So that is vertical lines. The horizontal lines. Vertical lines we're looking at is the line down in between the eyebrows. Now what does this mean? The first thing I think about this is specific to the intestines, is it's actually your gallbladder. You need to look at your gallbladder. Now if you don't know what your gallbladder is, your gallbladder stores bile which is produced from the liver in order to detox our body and to digest our food. So if that is not actually working well, you're not detoxing adequately, and actually you're not digesting your food and able to assimilate and absorb the energy and the nutrients, vitamins and minerals from your food. So this is an aspect of your gallbladder that you need to look out for. Emotionally also, this line is supposed to indicate anger, or specifically if you are not comfortable expressing your anger. So if you're not someone who's used to kind of getting it all off your chest and you have this line, You might want to introduce yourself to concepts to express frustrations and angers. So that is lines. The next thing I'm looking for is acne or boutons, spots of the forehead. Now this is another indication, again, always of the intestines, is that there's actually a toxic buildup in your intestines that needs to come out. You can get this with patients who are constipated, or they swing from constipation and diarrhea. And basically their intestinal function of eliminating toxins is not working sufficiently. Now there are other enzymes that can be at play with this here, but I'll be talking to you for about 15 minutes. It's outside the scope of this video. But you want to make sure that you're detoxing your intestines. Now what you can do for this, there are fantastic herbs that everybody can take. Marshmallow, slippery elm. Again, increasing resistant starch and soluble fibre to flush out everything in your intestines. And you also want to make sure that you're eating organic food. Organic food is so important where you can. Anything that is a source of fat in your diet, you want to make sure that it's organic. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you want to address food intolerances. Now food intolerances they can change for everybody, and unless you have an allergy, your food intolerance can swap throughout your life. I test food intolerances through kinesiology. Now the major ones I would be looking for in your forehead are some that might surprise you. It's not necessarily gluten. There's a major chance that it is dairy. Tomatoes, I have noticed, have a big problem with forehead acne. You're looking at things like the deadly nightshade family, peppers, aubergines. However, if you are dealing with a severe case of forehead acne, what I would suggest to you is that you deal with a practitioner. So you find a practitioner to address your allergies. Now when you're looking at allergies, you're not just looking at IgE, you're looking at IgG, IgA allergies, but you're also looking at sensitivities, things like the deadly nightshade family, sugar, and the salicylate family. None of these will come up in a blood test, but you might have an intolerance to them. So this is one aspect I would look for forehead acne. It always comes from the intestines. If you have overuse of antibiotics, this also might present as forehead acne. What you need to do is readdress the microbiome of your intestines, again initially by eliminating foods that might aggravate this, and then reculture your intestines. Finally, we're going to be talking about irritation of the forehead. Now irritation of the forehead is itchiness, mostly itchiness and irritation and dryness. What I have seen in patients is this can actually be an aspect of detox, so it's part of the process of treatment, so it's a good sign and it's short-lived. However, if you are dealing with this and you're not going through a detox or treatment, it can mean something else. So what you really want to look for is actually the products that you're using. So products that you're using in your daily life that might impact your intestines. Again, foods that you're cooking with, if it's organic, or the utensils that you're cooking with, if they're plastics or you have aluminium pans. You need to eliminate as much of the toxic environment, daily toxic burden that you can in order to address the forehead irritation. The other aspect of forehead irritation is actually essential fatty acids. If you have dry skin is a lack of omegas in the body. Sorry, I'm doing this in French and English. And what you will need to do is you need to address your omega balance in your body. Now we need omega 3, 6 and 9. But what I would just suggest to you is that in your daily life, in a modern day, we have enough omega 6. We need to balance that out with omega 3s. So increasing walnuts, linseeds, oily fish, hemp seeds. These are amazing abilities in order to bring up the balance of omega 3s in your body that may lead to irritation of the forehead. So that is the first aspect of facial analysis for the forehead. Let me know what you think, and I will be back to you next time talking about the cheeks. Have a great day.